Story 1. The Thing That Walked on the Lake. I've always loved camping in the winter. The silence, the way snow muffles everything, it gives the woods a peaceful kind of purity. I've gone solo every year since college, even now in my 30s. People think I'm crazy, but I've always said the cold keeps the worst things away. I was wrong. This happened 3 years ago in northern Minnesota, right on the edge of the Boundary Waters. I hiked in alone, 10 miles through the forest, to a frozen lake called Elbow Lake. Not many people know about it. It's off any main trail, tucked between ridges and pines, so isolated you'd never see another soul for days. That's exactly why I loved it. I set up camp on the lake's eastern shore, just where the trees part and offer a view of the snow-covered water. It was early January, the coldest week of the year. Nights dropped below -20, the kind of cold that makes your breath crackle. The first night was uneventful. Clear skies, stars bright enough to see without a flashlight. I made a fire, ate some dehydrated chili, and crawled into my tent early. The only sound was the occasional pop of ice shifting under the weight of winter. But the second night, everything changed. It started just after midnight. I was half asleep when I heard a crunching sound outside. At first, I thought it was just the trees creaking in the wind. But then I realized there was no wind. The air was dead still. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Slow, deliberate steps on hard-packed snow. I froze. Now, this wasn't my first winter trip. I've seen wolves, even a moose up close. I know how animals sound, but this was 2 feet, a biped, and heavy. I reached for my headlamp and unzipped the tent just a little, trying not to make a sound. At first, I saw nothing but white. The moon lit the lake like a silver mirror. Then I spotted it, halfway across the ice, maybe 50 yards out. It was a man, or something like a man. He was tall, unnaturally so. Gaunt, arms hanging almost to his knees. He moved with a strange, slow gait, jerky, like each step took effort. He wore no winter clothes, just a threadbare shirt and pants, no gloves, no hat, no shoes. Barefoot on ice in sub-zero temperatures, my skin crawled. I whispered to myself, "Who the hell is that?" The figure stopped. My heart punched my ribs. I was sure I hadn't been loud enough to hear. But he slowly turned his head, too slowly, and looked right at me. I ducked back inside and killed my light. My hands were shaking. I waited. 10 seconds, 30, a minute. Crunch. The sound again, closer this time. I grabbed the hatchet from beside my sleeping bag and held it tight, barely breathing. The steps kept coming, slow, methodical, getting closer to my tent with each passing second. Then, nothing. Silence. Not even the ice popping anymore. I waited. Maybe 20 minutes passed before I dared unzip the flap again. It was gone. Just vanished. No footprints on the snow-covered ice, nothing. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I convinced myself it had to be a hallucination. Cold and exhaustion can mess with your head. I'd read that. So I stayed. I should have left. I know that now. That night, I kept my fire burning late. Something about the flames made me feel safer. I even laid a perimeter of small branches around my tent. If something stepped on them, I'd hear the snap. Around 2 a.m., I heard it again. Crunch, crunch. This time, it came from inside the tree line, just behind my tent. Snap, a branch broke. I sat up, hatchet in hand. My breath clouded in the frigid air. Then I heard a voice. Not loud, but unmistakable. A whisper just outside the tent. "Are you warm in there?" My blood turned to ice. "Who's there?" I shouted. No response. "Hello, I'm armed. I'll call for help." I knew no signal reached out here. The threat was empty. More silence. Then, from the lake. He's cold. He needs you. The voice was wrong. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Like it echoed inside my skull instead of the air. I ripped open the tent flap. Nothing but moonlight and snow. Then I saw them. Footprints. Bare footprints in the snow, circling my tent. Not leading to it, just around it. Again and again. 12, maybe 15 times. I looked toward the lake and saw the same figure, standing still, watching. But this time, there were others behind him. Half a dozen, maybe more. All barefoot, all just standing on the ice, motionless. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I threw everything into my pack, left the tent behind, and ran. No flashlight. Just moonlight and pure panic. I didn't stop until sunrise. It took me most of the next day to find the trail and hike out. I left gear, food, everything behind. My hands were frostbitten, my feet blistered. But I didn't care. I never went back. I told a forest ranger about it once. He looked at me funny, then said something I'll never forget. Elbow Lake, he said. That place isn't on most maps anymore. You know why? I shook my head. Whole family died out there in the 60s. Cabin burned down. They found the bodies weeks later, except the youngest son. That one was never recovered. Some folks say he wandered off the lake barefoot, in the middle of winter. Never felt the cold at all. Story 2. The Hollow Snow. People don't believe me when I tell them this story. They say I was just hallucinating or sleep-deprived or suffering from the cold. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. It happened 2 winters ago, in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. My buddy Nate and I decided to do a backcountry snowshoe trip. 2 nights out, camping at elevation, far from any trail. Nate was an experienced outdoorsman like me. We were prepared. We had GPS, radios, avalanche gear, everything. The first day was tough but beautiful. Snow piled high on the branches, the air clean and sharp. We made it to a flat ridge near Mount Chocorua and pitched our tent in a clearing surrounded by dense pines. We were completely alone. That night, we sat by our little stove, eating freeze-dried mac and cheese, when Nate pointed toward the trees. "You hear that?" he asked. I listened. A soft crunch, then another, almost like footsteps in the snow. But not steady, not quite human, just off. Probably an animal, I thought. Maybe a hare or a deer. I shrugged it off, but then it happened again, louder this time, closer. We both turned our headlamps toward the tree line. Nothing. The sound stopped. We stayed up a little longer listening. Eventually, the woods fell silent again. We went to sleep, telling ourselves it was just the woods settling. Around 3 a.m., I woke up freezing. I was bundled in my bag, wearing thermal layers. But the cold felt wrong, like it was coming from inside the tent. I sat up and realized the temperature had plummeted far below the forecast. My breath fogged the air like smoke. Then I noticed Nate's bag was empty. His boots were gone too. I called out, unzipping the tent in a rush, thinking maybe he went to pee. But the world outside was empty and silent. Our camp stove was off. No footprints in the snow around the tent. None leaving, none returning. Just untouched white. I called for him. Nothing. I grabbed my boots, slipped them on, and walked a wide circle around our camp, scanning with my headlamp. But the light only bounced back off the snow. Trees looked like frozen skeletons. No sign of him. No voice, no footprints. It was like he vanished into thin air. I spent the next hour searching, yelling his name until my throat was raw. Still no answer. Then I saw something. About 30 yards from camp, a depression in the snow, perfectly round. About 6 feet across. I walked closer, heart hammering. It wasn't a snowdrift. It was sunken, like the ground had collapsed. I knelt by the edge, shined my light in, and almost fell backward. The snow had formed a tunnel straight down, and it wasn't natural. The sides were smooth, as if something had melted its way through the snow in a perfect cylinder. It went down farther than my light could reach, maybe 20 feet, maybe more. It didn't look dug, it looked carved. There were no footprints around it, nothing leading to or from it, just that perfect gaping hole. I backed away slowly, adrenaline flooding every nerve. Something deep in me screamed that this wasn't right, that I needed to leave. Now, but I didn't. Not yet. I went back to the tent, grabbed my radio and tried calling Nate again. Static. Then, faintly, barely audible, a whisper. Not Nate's voice. It said, "Come down." I dropped the radio. I packed everything in minutes, hands shaking the whole time. I didn't even break camp properly. I just shoved gear into my pack, grabbed a flare, and took off down the ridge trail in the dark. I didn't stop moving until I saw the ranger station. Almost 10 hours later, frostbitten and delirious, the rescue team searched the site. They found the tent, my tracks, but not Nate. No footprints, no body. And the hole, gone. Just flat snow where I know it had been. They told me he probably wandered off in the night and got lost. Hypothermia. Happens all the time. But I've been in the woods long enough to know that snow doesn't just collapse into perfect vertical tunnels, and it doesn't refill itself overnight. A few months later, I started digging. I found a pattern. Similar disappearances, all in deep winter, all in backcountry areas. In every case, the same detail was mentioned in passing. Strange depressions in the snow, circular, smooth, never explained. They call them snow hollows on a few survival forums. Story 3. The Third Night. They say the woods go quiet when something's wrong. I never believed that, until the third night. It started as a simple getaway. I needed to get away from the noise, the burnout, the constant buzz of city life. So I took a solo trip up to the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota, right along the Canadian border. I'd done plenty of summer hiking up there, but this was my first winter excursion. I wanted to test myself, push the limits, find some peace. I packed light but smart, cold weather gear, a reinforced four-season tent, emergency beacon, flare gun, the whole deal. I told my friend Matt I'd check in every 48 hours on my satellite phone. If he didn't hear from me by the third day, he'd call the Rangers. Day 1 was perfect. Hard snow, overcast sky, not a single soul in sight. I hiked across a frozen lake, the snow crunching under my snowshoes, and set up camp in a narrow inlet surrounded by pine and birch. The silence was stunning. The kind that feels like it presses in on you. You don't get silence like that in the city. I actually loved it at first. That night, I built a small fire, made a hot meal, and wrote in my journal. Everything felt calm, clean, just me in the woods. But on the second night, things got weird. It started with tracks, not mine. About 20 feet from my tent, in the snow that had fallen that afternoon, I found a single line of footprints. They weren't fresh, but they hadn't been there the night before. Long strides, deep impressions, bare feet. No joke, bare feet. I followed them for maybe 10 yards before they just stopped. No turnaround, no fading out. Like whatever made them had vanished into thin air. I stood there for a long time, trying to make sense of it. No animal I knew left prints like that. And no human would be walking around out here barefoot, especially in that weather. It had dropped below 0 the night before. Still, I chalked it up to maybe some weird melting pattern or snow shifting. I'm a skeptic by nature. Or I was anyway. Later that night, I was woken by a noise. A sharp, snapping crack. I shot upright in my bag, heart pounding. The tent was dark. My watch said 3:18 a.m. The woods outside were dead silent. Then I heard it again, this time closer. Another crack, like a branch snapping underfoot. I grabbed my flashlight and unzipped the tent. The cold hit me like a punch. I scanned the area, light sweeping over snowdrifts and frozen trees. Nothing. No movement. But the silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was charged, like something was holding its breath. I didn't sleep after that. Just sat upright in my bag, waiting for dawn. On the third day, I thought about calling it early and heading back. But pride got the better of me. I didn't want to be the guy who tapped out because of a couple weird noises and some snow tracks. So I packed up and hiked deeper, toward an unmarked area I'd found on satellite maps, an isolated cove by a frozen waterfall. It took most of the day to reach it. It was beautiful, I won't lie. The waterfall had frozen mid-flow, a huge sheet of pale blue ice cascading over jagged rocks. Pines crowded close around it, and snow blanketed everything in a thick, eerie stillness. I pitched my tent about 50 yards from the base, right on a flat patch near some boulders. And that's where everything went wrong. That night, I didn't light a fire. I was too tired. I just boiled some water, ate a freeze-dried meal, and crawled into my bag. It must have been around midnight when I woke up to a sound I still hear in my nightmares. Breathing. Not mine. Heavy, deliberate breathing, just outside the tent wall. It circled the tent once, slow, crunching footsteps, then stopped at the entrance and stayed there. For what felt like an hour. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just stared at the zipper and prayed. At one point, I swear I saw a shadow pass by the tent wall. Tall, thin, hunched over. Not animal, not man. Eventually, the breathing faded. The footsteps receded. But I didn't sleep. I didn't dare. At first light, I unzipped the tent. There were no footprints. None. Just smooth, untouched snow. Like nothing had been there at all. But I know what I heard. I packed up immediately. Didn't even eat. I started back toward the trailhead, checking my GPS every few minutes. But no matter how far I hiked, nothing looked right. Worse, the snowfall began to pick up. Not a storm, but heavy enough to start burying landmarks. The pines all looked the same. I tried to backtrack using my own prints, but they'd already been softened by the wind. That's when I saw it. Ahead of me, standing at the edge of a frozen creek, was a figure. Tall, unmoving. At first, I thought it was another camper. Relief washed over me. But then it turned, and I saw its face, or lack of one. No features, just smooth, pale skin, like snow packed over bone. It tilted its head, slowly, like it was studying me. I blinked, and it was gone. No sound, no movement, just vanished. I ran. I don't know how long. Hours, maybe. My legs were rubber, lungs burning. The snowfall got heavier, the woods closing in like a maze. Eventually, by some miracle, I found my first campsite, the one by the lake. My broken fire pit was still there. My snowshoe tracks long erased, but I knew that place. I set up my tent again and collapsed inside, exhausted. But that night, it came back. I woke up to the same breathing. Closer this time. It didn't circle the tent. It stood right behind my head, just breathing. Then I heard the whisper. Low, raspy. Impossible to tell if it was male or female. It said, "Stay." Just that one word. Stay. I screamed. Fired the flare gun straight through the tent wall. The red light shot into the trees, lighting them up in pulsing shadows. Whatever had been out there, it was gone. At first light, I used the satellite phone and called Matt. He triggered a rescue. They found me 12 hours later, disoriented and half frozen near the lake's edge. I told them I'd gotten lost. I didn't mention the figure, or the breathing, or the whisper. What was I supposed to say? That something in the woods wanted me to stay. The ranger who drove me back said something weird, though. He looked out at the trees and said, "Funny thing. Every couple years we lose someone out here. Not hikers, though. Locals. They go out hunting or camping and just vanish." He said it like it was nothing. Like it was normal. I've never been back. Never will. But sometimes, when it snows outside and everything's quiet, I swear I hear it again. That whisper, just beyond the window. Stay.